Dorothy and the Wizard and Oz, Part 5, last chunk. Where we left off, our crew is in the Emerald City. There were lots of plot holes, and they've all had a feast, and they're all going to their rooms, going to bed for the day. Now we start to run into some issues with our boy Jim the cab horse. He started his life as a racehorse from Kentucky, and then after he retired from that, he became a cart horse, but ultimately he's always been treated like a servant, never like a guest. So when he's given his own room, he's offered different types of food, it goes a little to his head and he starts getting a little arrogant. They try to give him different types of food and he scoffs at it and sends it away. Eventually they realize that he'd like some oats, so they bring him some oatmeal and that ends up working out just fine. He meets the sawhorse and they are both like aghast at what they're seeing. Jim talks about how he's so much better than the sawhorse because he's made of flesh and bone and blood, and he talks about how, well, he's better because I have this big broad chest so I can breathe, and the sawhorse is like, well, I don't need to breathe. And the horse is like, well, I have this great head with a mouth so that I can eat delicious food, and the sawhorse is like, I don't need to eat food. At every turn, the real horse keeps insisting that he's superior to the sawhorse, but based on what the sawhorse is saying, it's pretty clear that the sawhorse is, in some ways, superior to the actual horse. He doesn't get tired, doesn't need to breathe, doesn't need to sleep, doesn't need to be fed. Eventually, just for fun, the scarecrow suggests that they race. Now, the sawhorse is like, no, that wouldn't be fair. And Jim's like, yeah, exactly, because I used to be a racehorse and I would totally win. It wouldn't be fair. And the sawhorse says, no, what I meant was that I don't ever get tired, so it wouldn't be fair for you. So they do end up racing. The sawhorse blows Jim out of the water, and he has a temper tantrum and kicks him and breaks one of his legs off and one of his ears. The Cowardly Lion and the Hungry Tiger have also shown back up to the Emerald City by this time, by the way, so the tiger pounces on him until he apologizes. Not the best look for our boy Jim. Now, Oz has been entertaining everyone with his magic tricks, and he does the thing again where he pulls out the 9 pigs. And Ozma is so delighted that she says that she wishes she could have a pig. And so he produces one and gives it to her and continues to do the trick as the days go by with only 8 pigs, and no one really seems to notice. Now, Ozma puts an emerald collar on the pig, and the reason I mention this is because after this whole race has happened, Ozma goes back to her room and is not able to find this pig, but she does find Eureka the kitten in there. And Eureka has been talking about wanting to eat these pigs the whole time. So Eureka is taken into custody and put on trial for the murder of Ozma's pet pig. A whole council of people is gathered, so the people deciding are going to be Ozma, of course, the wizard, the scarecrow, the wogglebug, pretty much the whole crew is part of this jury. And then the Tin Woodman, because of his soft, gentle heart, is going to be defending Eureka. Now, there haven't been a lot of crimes in Oz. They don't really know how trials work. They're just doing their best. So the wizard, prior to this trial, is afraid that Eureka will be found guilty and sentenced to death 9 times because she has 9 lives. And so he pulls the Tin Woodman aside and gives him one of the other pigs and says, if she's found guilty, I want you to produce this and say, look, how could she have killed the pig? He's right here. So the trial goes on. The Tin Woodman tries to say all of these kind things about Eureka, like, how could such an adorable, gentle little kitten do something like this? And Eureka's like, I'm not gentle, and she snarls and does all of these things to say that the Tin Woodman is full of it, which is obviously not helping her case. She is eventually found guilty and is about to be sentenced to death, but the Tin Woodman lifts up his hat and produces this other pig, and he doesn't feel great about it. But Eureka again is like, no, that's not the pig, because Ozma's pig had the emerald collar around his neck, so that can't be the same one. And the Tin Woodman's like, I'm trying to help you over here. But Eureka says, no, I was just messing with you. I tried to eat the pig once I was left alone in Ozma's room with it, but he ran away and ended up sliding down a narrow-necked vase and getting stuck in there, so I couldn't get to him. So if you go get the vase, I'm sure he'll be there. And sure enough, there he was. She wasn't sentenced to anything for attempted murder, she was just let off free after that. Here's a picture of Eureka in court, very Puss in Boots coded. Eventually, everyone decides it's time to go back home. Dorothy uses the magic painting to check on Aunt Em and Uncle Henry, and Uncle Henry has gone back to Kansas at this point, and she sees them in mourning clothes. So she decides, yeah, it's probably time to go home. And Zeb doesn't see Uncle Hodgson mourning him, but he's like, well, I would like to go back to California, and Jim isn't really enjoying being here anymore ever since he lost that race. So Ozma wishes Dorothy back to Kansas, wishes Zeb and Jim back to California. The wizard decides to stay in Oz, and they all lived happily ever after for now. And that's it. Come back tomorrow for part 1 of The Road to Oz.